Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the Fawn Pod, friends occasionally not disagreeing. We are here tonight. I'm here with Cody. This is Brett, and we're here to do a movie review tonight for you. But before we get to that, I can, I can already guess what you're here to be able to talk about tonight, but what have you been up to lately?
Oh, I put a fence up in my garden. We just got back from Japan a few days ago, and I would take a long time to go over everything we did, but a couple of highlights, I guess. We did, it's interesting, we did a lot. We did three of the parks while we were there. I'll just talk about those, I guess. We did Tokyo Disneyland, which was different enough from American Disneyland in Florida. Like the rides were actually like just a little bit different. Like Pirates of the Caribbean was more especially at the beginning, was almost presented like a horror ride, which was pretty
Oh,
cool.
wow.
And then
Yeah.
and then at the end, it did get a little more into like the comical piratey side than it was towards the bottom. And let's see, their Space Mountain was like a little bit different. Like at least the one in Florida, most of the time when I go on, that one has like very minimal lighting. You can kind of see like stars or like occasionally catch a glimpse of like a track for the roller coaster. And this one was like just completely pitch black. Like you had no idea where you were going
Hmm.
whatsoever. So that was a little bit different. We also noted like the one in Florida seems like there's like more uh like hills and drops in Space Mountain. And this one was very big on like quick turning more so than
Hmm.
dropping. So that was kind of weird.
Okay.
But that was a pretty decent park. They had, I think, maybe a ride or two. I'd have to go back and look at all the things they had that ours didn't have, but that was pretty fun. One of the oddly standout rides at that park was the Beauty and the Beast ride, which I was like, oh, this will be great.
Right.
And it was really cool. It used like one of those trackless technology rides. Like I believe the Star Wars ride is in Florida. I haven't done that one, but the big Star Wars ride, it's kind of like that.
Yeah.
And you were in like a teacup. It fit like six people, and you were just like, it was really cool. You were flying around, and sometimes like characters would like jump in a cart, and then like they would come down, and their cart would start mixing with your cart, and like this big elaborate dance scene, and you were like going around tables, and it was a pretty cool little thing, I have to say. They also had a Winnie the Pooh ride. Can't remember if that was Disney or Universal. Very similar though, like same thing, trackless technology.
Hmm.
It was like such a great way because I was like, I don't care about Winnie the Pooh, and I didn't really care about Beauty and the Beast, but like the rides were amazing. So I was like, I'd go on
Right.
that again, sure. So that one was pretty good. The Studio Ghibli park we did was they didn't have any rides per se. It was more like you walked around and saw like famous scenes from those movies and got to take pictures by them. And they had a lot of stuff crammed in one area, but then it was like an outdoor park. Actually, it was really cool because they used I'm going to say for lack of a better term, like a state park or like a city park or something that you would have. And like they had a building with like a hockey arena and stuff like that. But then like also built on that big chunk of land was like this park. So it was weird. You like shared the land with these other facilities. Like they had a food truck court, yeah, food truck court and some other things there too. So it's just an interesting use of land because I don't feel like you would see that here where they were
Hmm.
like dual using the land like that. So that one was pretty cool. And then Universal, we did also, which was pretty fun. We did a couple roller coasters. I think they only had maybe three there, but um, they were pretty fun too. They had one that was like a suspended one where you were like hanging kind of like in a crouched position, but looking down at the ground, which was, I hadn't done one like that. I think maybe the rest of my family had at some park, but I hadn't done one like that. So when you were like going down the big hill, it looked like you were like literally just flying towards the ground, you know?
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so that was fun. And yeah, we had a lot of fun on all of them. There's just a lot of interesting little quirks that makes their parks just a little bit different than ours, I thought. And Super Nintendo Land we did also, which was super cool. It was a very small area of Universal and way overpacked, even though they limit entry by time, but just people crawling over each other. But super fun. If you had like room to bring like 200 of your closest friends and go do all the stuff in it, it would have been really cool. Very interactive, super cool. So
Hmm.
the Mario Kart ride was actually really fun. You had like these VR goggles on and or maybe AR might be a better term, and you were like you could see like enemies and like shells flying at you and stuff while the cart's like you had to like drive the cart. You got points for driving correctly, And then also points for like shooting your shells at stuff as it was
Oh,
projecting onto you. So
okay. Yeah, I hadn't
yeah.
seen that
Anyway, a
yet.
lot of fun though. A lot of fun. So what about you? What have you been up to?
Nice. Um, well, a couple of things that I've watched recently. We caught Furiosa about a week
Hmm.
ago. And I don't think we're gonna review that, so I'll go ahead and talk about it here quick. But
Yeah.
it was there were definitely parts of it that I felt were really cool and pretty amazing. Overall, it was probably less amazing than I was expecting or hoping it to be. Um, it was still enjoyable. It was definitely I guess I went in partially my fault maybe because I went in expecting it to be like very similar to Fury Road,
Yeah.
and it definitely has much more story in it.
Oh,
Like it's definitely like more of an origin backstory kind of thing rather than just an action movie. Um but it does have action as well. So it's a mix. I just it kind of felt at points uh like they gave us more backstory than we really needed.
oh, okay.
And I was like, you probably could have cut that out. And then like one of the bigger things for me was there's one character in particular. I won't spoil that, but that character I like for half the movie, I didn't know if I was supposed to like them or hate them, or they were the good guy, the bad guy. I was
Hmm.
like, what is this character going right now? And, um, that kind of threw me off a bit as well. But
Was it was
overall,
it go ahead.
I was just overall I enjoyed the movie.
Was
So
it like an enjoyable you didn't know if the character was good or bad, or just like as an audience you were confused if they were
it
good or
was
bad?
confusing. I didn't
Oh,
know how to react. Yeah,
yeah.
so it was definitely a negative in my for the overall.
Okay.
So. And we also watched something that I'm sure you'll be interested in was season 2 of The Mole is out, and
Oh,
we binged through that and over the last week here or so. Um, and it was really good. It was another like the first season I really enjoyed.
yeah.
It was really hard. Like the first season was really hard to figure out who the mole was.
Yeah.
And the second season was just as good in those regards. It
Hmm.
was, fun, a fun cast, some really cool missions and stuff. And while I did I did like Miranda and I kind of like when it got close to the end, we both kind of like said, who do you think he'd like? Give like a top three who you think it is, and the person who was the mole was my number two. So I got like some I was correct in that regard, but still it just really they really do a good job producing that show in a way that you don't see really hints of who the mole actually is. Like they don't show you the obvious stuff,
Yeah, that's good to
So
hear. I forgot. Yeah, I think Karen mentioned that too, and I gotta. Oh man, we got one episode. Well, we finally caught up on the Acolyte, so we had just
I gotta
had
do that
this
yet.
week's episode, I think, and then we'll be done with that. But we have like we're in the middle of Lost, we're in the middle of the DC movies. We
Mm.
have oh my gosh, we started watching the Studio Ghibli films again because we were going to Japan. So I don't know if we'll get back to that. The Mole now, I forgot about that. And we have been we've every single day we've had a actual like debate verbally over whether we can let the kids watch Deadpool 1 and 2 or not. Um,
Right.
there still has not been a resolution on that. I just don't know. So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into our discussion tonight. We are here to talk about a movie which it's kind of funny because I had forgotten like when it came out, and like so this movie's been out for like about a year and a half already. I felt like it was much more recent than that, but we're going to talk about the movie Pearl, which is a direct prequel to the movie X, which we reviewed several months ago. I don't remember exactly when, but
Yep.
a while back. Um, and this movie released on September 16th, 2022 already. Um, just a quick synopsis off of IMDb here. So, trapped on her family's isolated farm, Pearl must tend to her ailing father under bitter and overbearing watch of her devout mother. Lusting for a glamorous life like she's seen in the movies, Pearl finds her ambitions, temptations, and repressions all colliding in this origin story of X's iconic villain. Um, I feel like I should add the tagline of this movie. Um, oh gosh, where is it now? Because it's not listed right here in front of me. So it's Pearl, an extraordinary origin story, which it's a little bit cheesy in my end, but such as it is. So in this we have a cast of so we got Mia Goth returning as Pearl, which she actually as we talked about the first time was she played Pearl in X, but then
Yeah.
she also played Maxine. So she was dual casting in that movie. So she's back here as Pearl in this. We have David Cornsweet as an apparently nameless projectionist. I like nowhere do I see a name labeled for him. Although
Interesting.
I feel like at one point she said his name in the movie, but nowhere in any casting list does this character have a name.
Yeah.
We
Interesting.
also have Tandy Wright as Ruth, who was Pearl's mother. Matthew Sunderland as Pearl's father, also apparently nameless. I can't find a name for his character. Um, Emma Jenkins Pearl as Mitzi. And then we have Howard, played by Alistair Sewell, probably Sewell, um, who appears just very briefly at the end, but is the same Howard character
Yeah.
from the X movie.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. Okay. So
I'm
this is
guessing it's not
set.
the same actor. I didn't look into that. I don't know.
I did look. It's not the same actor. I was curious about that too with
Okay.
the makeup and stuff, but
Yeah.
it looks like it is a different person. But
Yeah. So we had a bunch of casting here that I don't know that I'm familiar with any of these people or anything else, but
no, this is another interesting one too because to me, like I'm trying to think of another trilogy. And there's a lot of film trilogies, but I'm trying to think of one that like came out and gave us the middle movie first, and then gave us the prequel, and then gave us the sequel after that.
yeah, that's got to be pretty rare. I right off the top of my head, I can't think of any.
Yeah. So this is interesting. I was mentioning to you too here. One of the reasons I suggested this one again here was Martin Scorsese has like a hard on for this trilogy. I don't know exactly
Okay.
what here. This is I tried to pull up the article I found earlier with him saying he loved the entire trilogy, but I actually found an article from Variety.com 2022 where Scorsese said that he watched the movie Pearl and it was so disturbing he had trouble sleeping afterwards.
Really
So,
interesting. Okay.
yeah.
I'm not certain that I would agree with that, but
Yeah.
we'll get to that shortly.
Yeah.
Um, this film is highly rated. Basically everywhere I've looked, the ratings are pretty good. Just from Rotten Tomatoes here, as we often use. Uh, by reviews, it's 92% on the fresh meter here. Audience score is 83%, so also quite high.
Mm.
And I saw a lot of like other places like Metacritic and things like that. They're like high, like 70s, 80s out of 100 ratings. So lot of good numbers for this around. So there seem to be a lot of other people who also agree with Mr. Scorsese. Um, and I think I want to approach this discussion just by kind of like hitting a bunch of talking points, and this time we'll just kind of skip the plot synopsis that we've done before, and we'll just throw out thoughts and ideas just
Okay.
as we go here. So, um, the first point I had here, and it was interesting for me because, um, well, I'll get that in just a moment, but so like the early vibe of this movie is like very bright and cheery, and bright specifically to the point where I actually like went into my TV settings. I was like, there's something wrong with my TV. I need to fix this. There's something like
Oh, wow.
the
Okay.
kids went in here and like changed the brightness, right? There's something wrong here. And it wasn't. It was the TV was fine. It's just like all the colors were like so vivid in those early scenes that it was like glowing.
Yeah, it's yeah.
I'm guessing that was all intentional, as a like a contrast between beginning and end kind of thing. I A, did you notice that? And I guess B, how did you feel about that?
Yeah, I'm just checking here. I mean, it's on a Reddit board here. Somebody talking about Martin Scorsese actually looking at this, but they're using the term Technicolor, I guess, which was like that big way they shot movies back in like, like 50s, maybe and
Oh,
earlier.
okay, so maybe it was like over so like a period
I
piece
think
kind
it, yeah, I
of.
think it must have been intentional. I don't know if I mentioned or noticed the color as much as you just mentioned, but now that you've said it, you know, I can remember that very well. So if the color sticks out to me, then that probably means they have quite a bit of saturation in there with their colors that they use. So
Mm,
because usually I don't process that with color blindness, but they said saturation's like the key thing. So yeah, I think you're right. I did notice like the music and the font choices at the beginning of the film, though, they were very like period piece throwback. I mean, it felt like you were watching something from a long time ago. Movie set in 1918. I don't know if it felt quite that old to me with the way it was presented.
right. I would say it kind of felt like it was like shot in the 40s or 50s,
Yeah.
maybe.
So that part maybe is a little off, but I did think it
Yeah.
was an interesting time period that they chose. I was curious. I guess the character we saw in X of Pearl, if you like go back in her timeline to where you want to tell the story of her as, I don't know what she is here, late teens, early 20s, something there.
Yeah, maybe like
Um,
18 to 20.
so I guess maybe this is the time period you like just naturally end up at, but I did think it was interesting that this was basically shot during COVID and released in 22, and it's like the Spanish flu and everybody had a mask on in the movie, and I was
We
curious if there was like an over, commentary on something there, but
Yeah, we noticed that as well. Yeah, the point that they filmed this during COVID, and for at least a portion of this movie, there's several people wearing masks, and it seemed like I wonder if it was just convenient as
yeah,
well, so they just used it.
maybe. But yeah, definitely like a retro vibe in this one.
Mm. Yeah, so I uh talking about it, so I'm trying to remember now. Like, so X was set in like 70s, right?
70s, I
Was
think
that
it
it?
was, yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that timeline wise fits just fine. Like she would be like 70 to 80 in X, and that's about the way she looked. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think that
that
matches up
lines
pretty
up.
well.
Yeah. So um guess let's talk about the character of Pearl, since this is her story. Uh did the character fit your expectations? Did you I guess we just go into like even a deeper dive, just like did you like the character? Did you like how it's portrayed? Specifically like her, I don't know what she describes it as like a sickness or like madness or psychosis, whatever's going on with her here. How did just generally you feel about her?
This is a tough question to answer, and I feel like it's maybe a little bit about how I feel about the movie too. But like, I feel like some parts were extremely well done, some parts I didn't buy into quite as much. But that being said, I don't know that the performance wasn't really good, if that makes sense. Like, I feel like Mia Goth really did a great job with this character, and I mean, she's basically a serial killer by the end, even though she doesn't really have to leave her house. But um,
Right.
like I feel like when we see these characters like that, there's always like this understood of, oh, they went down this path of checklist A, B, C, D, and that's how they ended up as a serial killer. And like I thought this movie did a really good job of like showing us those steps and like the building tension in her and just how angry she was at the world and her situation, and then kind of like little hints of like her character. Like we saw her do a few things during the movie that I was like, oh, she's going to do that. And like she backs off and like she doesn't do it. And you're like, oh, okay, slow burn. We're getting a slow burn here. And then eventually, like she just cracks and then she just goes into this madness towards the end. So I think she did a pretty good job acting that character out. It's a weird character. So I don't know if I
Yeah.
liked the character, but I think she did a good job acting as the character.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah. Uh I guess I would agree with a lot of that. I think she does a really good job in a lot of this. She definitely comes off as having a definitely an unnerving personality at times. Like she does that really well. Um, and I think I would also agree that it was a bit uneven at points. And just thought occurred to me to hear is that it part of that could just be that it doesn't seem like they're really taking the movie like real seriously at all times. It seems like it's more of like just kind of having fun with it, rather than being like a like a true like horror or real psychological type movie. Um, so maybe that feeling just comes from that a bit, where it's a bit uneven. There were things that were like definitely not like inconsistencies just in like the writing or things like there's one scene early on where like she goes and they're like making dinner and like she takes the corn and puts the corn in the pot and then goes to tell his dad that dinner's ready and he didn't even start cooking the corn yet. She literally just put it in a pot. Like silly things like that don't really matter, but
Yeah.
I think I feel like that just kind of overall kind of points to their method of creating this movie was not necessarily like, oh, we need to make sure everything lines up perfect here. It's just like, make something that's kind of fun and wacky a little bit.
Yeah, another moment of that for me was when she was like riding her bike home from the theater and that little film cell flew out of her pocket.
Oh my gosh.
And she like just starts running into a cornfield like hundreds of feet. And I'm like, what?
Yes.
Where did it fly off to?
Yeah, so um yeah, essentially what that scene was, she got this like one film cell from this projectionist guy like as a gift, and like she had it tucked in a pocket, and it was like barely in her pocket, like like half of it was sticking out, this little tiny flimsy film cell. And the wind catches it and it goes flying out of her pocket, and she goes like running off many dozens of feet into the into a cornfield and was looking for this film cell. I wrote that I caught that right away too. Like this is it's just ridiculous. Like that is not logical at all.
No.
Um, yeah. Um, since we're talking about that scene,
Yeah.
that leads into I would say like the first big moment of the movie kind of like going off the rails a bit. So um I feel like it's fair to talk about this scene because it's pretty interesting and uh
That's one
so
word for
that is one word.
it.
So uh Pearl goes off into this cornfield, like starts she's like you say, looking for this film cell. That's her first reason in there. But then she just kind of like seems to be like exploring a bit, and she like stumbles upon this a scarecrow in the field, as you would have. Um and essentially she imagines that the scarecrow is uh I don't know if it was like it was meant that she was supposed to be imagining the scarecrow as the projectionist guy the whole time, or if that's just kind of like how it went.
Yeah, it's
But
unclear.
anyways, she's like, um, I guess we could go back and mention like part of her character's drive is that she wants to be a dancer, like a famous dancer in movies and things like that. So she goes and she's like essentially like pretending to like dance with this scarecrow. And then she starts doing other things with the scarecrow that get definitely more than PG-13.
Yeah.
Um, that
Weird
uh,
scene.
it was a weird scene. Yeah, I felt like I stumbled into like the Wizard of Oz or something. It was like no longer no longer Pearl anymore. Um, but we move on. I think where to go from that next.
Well, actually, it's funny you mentioned that because I did put in my notes like this movie feels like what the Wizard of Oz could have been if she didn't go off to the land of Oz. Like she is on a farm, she's kind of in like these mundane routines, and then she's riding a bike and she's got a
Right.
scarecrow, and then like she doesn't go to the wonderful place, so she goes the other way.
Yeah, life takes a very different turn.
But it did
There
remind me of
definitely
that.
are some parallels. Yeah, I think just in like the
The
overall
color, I
look
mean,
of
there's that
it.
bright color too, and
Yep. Yeah. I wonder if that was like a one of their in production they like specifically thought, well, let's make this kind of like the Wizard of Oz. It might have been.
Possibly.
Yeah. Um, so we go from that scene, and the very soon after that, we get another rather adult scene, um,
Yep.
where she basically like sneaks out from home, goes back into town to like meet up with this projectionist guy who she apparently has some interest in. Um, and so this guy shows her is this film he brought back from Europe, which is an illegal stag film, which is essentially pornography. Um, and I don't I have this joke. I don't even know if I could say it now. So I mean, Pearl was clearly not affected by seeing this movie, and by it I mean the huge French bush in the movie.
Should search through the French bush for her film cell.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Um,
That was a little out of nowhere too when that came on. I was like, whoa, what's
yeah, it definitely it felt like they're just like throwing some shock value into the movie at
yeah.
that point.
Especially for like
Like
the projectionist guy to just be like, hey, I got this film
right.
person I'm just talking to. Watch this.
Yeah, hey, want to watch some of my porn?
Yeah.
Um, but let's see. So next point I want to talk about, um, and this is actually getting rather close to the end of the movie now, but Pearl goes into a she's talking with her sister-in-law Mitzi, and goes into a rather long monologue
Oh,
about her like her thoughts and like what is like motivating her. Like essentially Mitzi like convinces her to open up and just like talk to her about what's on her mind, and like specifically things like just like what Pearl would say to Howard if he was at home, because at this point Howard is off fighting in World War One. Uh it's so this monologue scene, uh which I actually felt was like one of the better parts of the movie overall.
hmm.
Like it was really interesting, and I think like she really does a great job like acting in
Yeah.
this scene. But it reached the point where you're like, wow, this is really long. And then it's like you're at that point you're like halfway done with it. And I got to the end and went back. It is a full 8 minutes.
Wow, really?
8 minutes straight of just her, like, and I'm sure it was like one take as well. Like
Yeah,
I
had to
didn't
be.
see any breaks because it's just the camera on her face the whole time,
Yeah, because they
like
never cut
not.
to the sister-in-law for reaction when she gets going.
Yeah, yep. Um, so I mean, overall, it was a really interesting scene. I felt like it was shot in a way, just the way they did it was pretty cool. It like kind of held me like interested in it, um, despite the fact that it was like really long.
I noticed that it was a super long scene. 8 minutes is kind of shocking to me to hear that it was that long. It's interesting too, because I know like if Joe was on here, we always talk about like our writing grad classes and how they're always like, show us, don't tell us. And like she's like the opposite of that character, but like she's not telling us really a lot during the movie. We see her do things, but we don't really get like that inner dialogue of what's going on in her head. And then like this scene is just like it's almost like pure exposition dump for what's going on as characterization, except it's the end of the film instead of the beginning of the film. So,
It really is, yeah.
yeah, it kind of flips it around a little bit.
Mhm.
Yeah, that was one of two very long scenes in this movie that felt uncomfortable after so long. But
Well, what's the other one? Do you want to say that now?
yeah, well, the other one was the end credits
Yes.
of
Go
her
ahead.
smiling and trying to hold a smile and like inflect her smile in different slight ways for I don't know how many minutes that was either, but thank
I
God.
saw it. I think it was 3 minutes.
Okay. And just that and she starts crying towards the end of it. And I was like, is this
Right.
just because she's trying to hold a smile, or is this
It
character's?
could
I
be.
don't know what's going on right now,
Yeah,
but
that might not have been acting. That might just been
it's
just
like,
a
can
thing
I?
that happened.
Yeah, and it's
Um,
even weirder because then like I was like, wow, they're really gonna do this for the whole credits, and then they eventually
mm,
do like circle in on her and fade it to black, but the credits keep
right.
going. So I was like, why did they keep it that long then if they didn't do the whole thing that way? Like it was a weird choice.
Yeah, it was just kind of like a really unnerving is the best word for it. Like is it's just a shot of it's a full shot of her face in the
Yeah,
camera. And yeah, she's literally just like, well, not even just holding like one. She's just trying smiling the whole time, but like you say, her face changes so much through that entire thing. Like there's like a huge, like seemingly huge range of emotions, like uh going through just that one look.
yeah,
Which um it was very weird, but it also was like I don't know, it had a certain quality that I think fit the movie and like it worked for me.
yeah. I'd agree with that. I mean, it's an odd choice, but yeah, I felt like it if not the movie, at least the character, because she was all about like being a star and trying to like
Mm,
outdo everybody and like her like the dance scene. Like there's a couple characterization parts in here I really like. I like the dream sequence she has during the dance audition where she's like dancing in Europe and there's like shit blowing
right.
up to the beat in the background and fireworks going off and things like that. Uh, yeah, I really liked that part. I had a couple questions on like the time period because it said it was in
Mm.
1918 and I wasn't around back then, obviously, but like there were just some things in there I was questioning, like the judge when she does the dance sequence. I was trying to look this up, but like he was like, "You don't quite have the X factor we're looking for," and I was like, "Is that a term they used in 1918?" Um,
You wouldn't
and
think
and I
so.
was looking it up here, and like somebody said it might go back as far as the 1930s, but then other people were claiming it's just referencing like algebra and like trying to find X, so it was around a lot longer than that.
Huh.
So I don't know on that one. And the other weird one I thought of was it common for somebody her age to just like take a bath in front of the whole family? I thought that was a little weird too.
Right. So
Her dad's like sitting there and her mom's walking in and out of the bathroom. I thought that was a little weird.
yeah, so for her dad for reference, is is basically I don't know what exactly he got the Spanish flu, I assume is what the story is, and
Yeah, I
like
don't know.
uh he's just in a wheelchair and like can't speak and like really can't move and they have to like feed him and stuff. But yeah, she's like taking a bath and she's got just dancing in the wheelchair right next to her right there. It seemed very odd, but who
Yeah.
knows? Yeah. Um, a couple other things about the time frame that I made note of. Not that I noticed it, but I saw these other people had written it. So like it's set in 1918, and there's a bunch of Ford Model Ts running around, which weren't didn't appear until 1926.
Hmm.
So
Interesting.
I mean, not a huge big deal, but you know, and then also she goes to the movies, and the movies apparently have synchronized sound, and that didn't happen also until like 1926.
I wondered about that because I was like, these have to be silent movies, and they were playing the like orchestral overtures basically. And I was like, when did, yeah, I thought about that, but I didn't actually look it up.
Mm, yeah, so a couple other like time frame probably goofs there, but again, like I say, I don't think they were really taking that too seriously in this movie.
Yeah.
They were just trying to give us a vibe, not be historically accurate anyway. Um, let's let's talk about some of these deaths.
All right.
So we've got uh by the end of the movie, she kills one, two, three, four. It's just I guess it is just four.
One, two,
I
three.
only,
Yeah,
I only
four.
count four.
The other
Um,
four characters in the movie.
yeah, like basically the rest of the cast.
Yeah.
Because it's not a big cast. Um, I also wrote down here, Mr. Goose meets his demise there. The
Oh,
right, and what was funny about that one is I thought they were just gonna like hint at like these dark thoughts or urges
Yeah.
and not actually kill the goose. But no, she just stabs the goose. And what was also kind of like, I don't know if that's like chalk that to her like craziness or what, but like it's not like she even like kills it and then like they eat the goose, which they clearly could have used because they seem to be very poor and like needing things.
That's a good point.
He just feeds the goose to her gator
Yeah,
in
that's
the
a good
pond.
point. I
Um,
guess to not show that she killed it, maybe like to avoid her mom's wrath. Her mom's a
maybe
biatch in this
covering
movie, man.
covering her tracks. Yeah.
And then she
Um,
crushes that baby alligator egg later on in her hand too, which I was
oh
like,
my gosh,
dang. I
yeah.
thought she was going to raise an alligator, and that was going to be like a plot point. Nope.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, next up on the list here we have Ruth, her mother, um, who, yeah, like you say, is definitely a very abrasive person in this movie, though. Um, I feel like they do a pretty decent job of explaining her like her emotions and motives and stuff, and the fact that she's uh like a German immigrant and trying to live in America during World War
Yeah.
One, and her husband is in a wheelchair, and she basically has to take care of him like he was a baby. So she's very bitter and jaded and things, but yeah, she's definitely very abrasive in this movie.
Yeah, that this is I don't know if you want to talk about the character of her, if you want to just stick to the deaths right now, but that
Either one, yeah.
this there were two really good scenes at a dinner table in this movie, like really well done. One was that the scene where the mom is I guess I don't know if she dies at that moment or not. I guess the evidence later maybe says she wasn't dead at that point, but when she's on
Mm.
fire. But before that happens, when the mom like snaps and goes off and basically is like, "Do you think this is the life I wanted?"
She
And
has like a
I
monologue
had
of
all
her
these
own.
dreams, and like I was like, "Whoa!" Like I didn't see that coming from her character because she seemed to be so like by the book. You got to work hard in life and all these things, and then she's like, "I had dreams too," and that kind of took me off guard. I liked that entire scene.
Yeah, I enjoyed that as well. I thought that was one of the better parts of the movie. Mm. But yeah, so um it seems to be just accidental as well,
Yeah,
but Pearl does end up killing her mother by like wrestling with her, and then she gets caught up in the fireplace and like she's only on fire for like 4 seconds,
yeah.
and like apparently that was enough to do her in. I mean, she did get some boiling corn
Yeah,
water tossed
yeah, they
on her
put her
after
out with the
that,
boiling
so
water, so that's probably not
probably
helping.
didn't. Yeah, but um, yeah, she just seemed like a tougher character. Like that wouldn't have taken her out, but
Yeah, that's true too.
such is life.
And then Pearl kind of shoves her down the basement stairs after that, and like a
Right.
keep, which
Yeah, if she wasn't dead before that, she that probably did her in.
yeah,
Um, so I mean, she also then later kills yeah, I'm just thinking timeline. I think her father came next, I guess.
well, technically she kills the
Or
projectionist
did she?
first,
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
which
So,
we've seen that weapon play out in the first film as well. The old trusty
right.
pitchfork was back here.
Yep.
Well, that's how she killed the goose too.
Right. Yep. Um, yeah, and that I think like that was actually probably one of the earliest points of where we see her character like really breaking. Uh, so that was an interesting kind of like turning point in the plot where like up to that point she kind of just more felt like a a teenager who like doesn't understand being responsible and just like wants things.
Yeah.
But then at that point she like we really kind of see like how warped her thought processes are.
Yeah, we definitely had hints before that, which as I said at the beginning, there was really good character progression in this movie with the animals we talked about and stuff. And then there was the scene where she like pushed her dad in the wheelchair down by like the gator pond and was like really
Mm,
close to the edge. And the
I
mom's like,
thought he was
"What
going
are
in
you
for sure.
doing?" Yeah, but then this is, I think the projectionist was when she finally snapped and killed a person for the first time, which again was a pretty gruesome death. Like this director is I don't even know how to say this person's name. Is it Ty T?
I
Isn't it like
think
T West or
Ty.
Ty West or something?
I don't actually know. I'm not certain that I've heard it, but I think it's. I've been assuming it's been Ty, but
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
Uh,
pretty gruesome. Because he was like
yeah.
driving, wasn't he? He was in the car and she
He
like
was
stabbed
sitting in
him
the car, right?
twice, and it was weird too. She like almost stabbed him in the exact same spot the second time. Like pitchfork went back in the same holes. It seemed like she got
Right.
great aim. Um, but then that was the guy that was on the ground, right? That she like put the pitchfork through his face,
Yes.
which was a pretty gruesome scene too, because it was like one
Mm,
prong on each side of his head, basically, somehow.
right.
Pretty
Yeah,
gruesome.
it all happened like pretty quickly. Yeah, so it wasn't like I think none of these were really like drawn out much. They were just like it's like it from the start of when you see that violence is going to happen to when the person is done. Like
Yeah.
they're all pretty quick.
Yeah, that was definitely a difference from the first movie too, I thought, because in X we had like a really like it wasn't down to a interval, but basically like there was a death like every 6 or 7 minutes somebody died, and then somebody else died, and somebody else died. And this was
Mm,
like slow burn, and then like yeah, like you said, like a 10 minute, maybe that it might even be too long, where she kills the projectionist, her mom, and then basically her dad all at the same time too.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, it definitely felt that way.
And that dad character was great to have in this movie too, because like that character really could only do their emotions with their eyes, it seemed like.
Hmm.
And that guy did a great job, like trying to portray different emotions with just his eye. He had like a
I
little
would agree with
anger
that.
and
Yeah,
terrifying. I mean,
there were definitely times where you could see like the character was yeah just terrified of what was
tear
happening
rolls
and
down or
having like
whatever.
no ability to do anything about it.
Yeah, that's yeah, that's think about that enough. I like that.
Yeah, that yeah, honestly, I didn't think about that a lot either, but that's probably one of the more scary bits of the film is just imagining what that character went through.
Yeah, completely
Mm,
helpless.
yeah.
Um, And then, like, she, after mom was burned already, but then I put on my notes here at least. So she kills the projectionist. Then she, like, opened the basement stairs and pushed mom, like, the rest of the way down the stairs onto, like, the concrete or the floor or whatever was down there, and then suffocates her dad, like, boom, boom, boom. Those are all pretty quick to each other.
Mm,
And I also made note here, too, like, the scene, I think it was when she was, maybe it was through this whole thing, or maybe it was just with the dad, but there was, like, these some kind of drum they used in the background of like the music, and it was very like booming style of drum that was kind of like I don't know where you normally have like maybe Thunder Crash or something, but it worked really well, and I actually thought it fit the like time period better somehow. Like that was the sound
okay.
effect they went with, to the point where I noticed it at least, so that was good.
Um, one other thing I didn't know, you just the last death was Mitzi, her sister-in-law.
Mm.
Um, I had two things on this. So like the first one was like I wrote down what is this chase scene that I'm watching? Because it was like the way they shot it was so I don't know if that was like another kind of callback to like older films where like it was like slow pace. It like it they filmed it in a way that it looked like they were running faster, but
Hmm.
like they physically were not moving very far. It's like when you're like your legs are moving like exaggeratedly.
Yeah,
So it looks like you're running, but you're actually just walking speed.
that
That's kind
was
of what it
kind of
felt like.
yeah.
Um and then no, this one was so she like cuts Mitzi's head off and then like she's like feeding the parts of the gator to like dispose of them. And
Yeah,
like she tosses the head in and the gator like leaps completely out of the water and catches the head.
as gators do, you
As
know.
they do, they just like jump out of the water like dolphins all the time.
Yes.
Um, this is crazy. Um, what do you think? As far as I mean, this is labeled as a horror movie. Um, just in general, what do you think about like scares, thrills, overall, the horror aspects? How do you feel about that?
Yeah, it's a good question. I don't know. I don't think there's much like straight up horror in this. I mean, definitely has shades of like a slasher film, kind of like X did, but even that is not really the label I'd put on this. I mean, this is like oh man, I don't know what you'd call this even. It's not really suspense, maybe thriller, maybe, but it's really like her character examination and like she kills people as we're seeing who she is. Um, but they're not really like, I mean, obviously they're central to the plot in some ways, but it's really just like how she interacts with people
Mm.
and how warped she is, I guess, that she's doing these things. So I don't know. Yeah, it is weird. It's not really true horror, that's for sure.
Yeah, it I don't think that there's any point in the movie where I actually felt like scared of a
Yeah,
situation. There were a few there was some decent tension at points for sure. And there was enough gore that like
yeah,
there was some uneasiness from that. But I also would find it hard to label as a horror movie if you just like if I just like watched it and like someone said, "Oh, what kind of movie is that?" I I don't know that I would call it a horror to
yeah,
describe
that's
it.
fair. I was just thinking too, the part where she was dismembering Mitzi, she like chops her arms off and chops her head off, and like most of the time, I feel like when a slasher movie or whatever you want to say would like show that from like far away, and it'd be like you see the arm come off or the head come off, and this one like almost put the camera like in the severed wound, which was interesting. Like you saw
Yeah,
like the arteries and like the blood like dripping and squirting out of the middle of the
definitely
arm.
very close up views. Yeah.
Yeah. One spot which was again like a little element of, I guess, horror if you want to do that. I really liked though when she lost the audition and then like reimagined the judges as the people she had killed. I thought that was a really cool scene too. Like suddenly her
Mm,
mom was evaluating her and her dad was like on the end, and the projectionist I think was one, and then Howard I think was the fourth one. But that
mm.
was really cool too. Just a fun way to like ramp up that scene a little bit more.
Yeah, that was a cool kind of like look into her state of mind in that moment. I think like perhaps if I had I probably would have made it like more darker or ominous. It didn't quite feel as ominous or like out of out of mind that
Hmm.
that I would imagine that to be, but yeah, I did like that just that bit. Um let's see what else we got to talk about here. Interesting thought that my I have to attribute this to my wife because she
Oh
came up with
no.
it, but um jumping back to X for a moment, do you think that Howard is actually trying to protect the film crew from Pearl in that movie rather than the other way around, which is how it seemed to play out in the moment?
Do I think that Howard is trying to protect the film crew from Pearl as opposed to Pearl from the film crew? Is that what you mean?
Right.
Um, yeah, probably. I mean, this lady is, they could, well, okay, go back a second here. First of all, I had a really hard time understanding how Pearl didn't just end up in jail after this happened
Yes.
because everybody around her was dead.
We had many questions on that as well.
But assuming that that didn't happen, then I guess Howard just covered for her and felt bad for her and has been. I mean, you could make 100 movies between Pearl and X because who knows who else came on their property in the
Sure.
meantime.
Yeah.
So yeah, it does seem that way. That's for sure.
Yeah,
And
it definitely.
go ahead.
Oh, just I just say like leaves a lot of questions as to so right at the very end of the movie, Howard does come back home from the war and very quickly
Howard.
discovers everything that Pearl has been doing, or like just the state of this household when he gets back. And uh like we don't see any kind of like resolution there as to like what his reaction is
Yeah,
necessarily. He's just in shock and like fear, and that's like the last thing we see. Um but yeah, so from this movie to X, Um, there's definitely a lot of something going on there to where Howard essentially accepts all these things that she'd done and like who she is. Um, but yeah, we don't see any of that, so it does leave a lot of questions.
I just thought too, wow, do you think they had the judge say that line that she didn't have the X factor because of the next movie was X? Like,
I wouldn't
was
doubt
that
that. Yeah,
deliberate? That's awesome. I didn't think about that.
yeah. Because they even say that like in it wasn't that like a line in X like she describes herself as having or no the producer the film producer in X says, "Oh, she's got that X factor." I think he says
Oh,
that
okay.
specifically in that movie at some point.
Okay.
So
Oh, that's a good
I would say
callback
that's
then.
probably as a direct callback. Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. That's good. Um, I wanted to mention for a second the dinner scene towards the end of the movie, before Howard comes home, which I just thought was like unbelievably creepy. Like you could see
Mm.
she has her mom and her dad set back up at the table. Mom's like half burned to death, but she like took the time to like brush her hair and like
By
her
the way,
skin is changing colors and her dad's skin is changing colors and he's sat up at the table and the pig with all the maggots is in the middle of the table
yeah, because
and
the pig had been sitting outside for days and days.
oh, it reminded me of Resident Evil 7, and I mean that in a good
Mm.
way.
Okay.
The scene at the dinner table, it was
Oh yeah.
just disgusting.
I know that one well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, let's see what else I got here. Oh, here's a hard-hitting question.
Oh yeah.
Considering that Mia Goth is married to Shia LaBeouf,
Wait, what?
how do you think that this has affected your viewing of the movie personally?
Is that true?
It is true. Yes.
Actually?
Yes.
Quickly goes online to double check this. What? I didn't know this.
Mm.
I honestly thought she was married to this director. So
Oh,
this
okay.
is throwing me for a loop here. Wow. No kidding. Um, I don't know how to take that. I gotta factor that in. I don't know. I still haven't watched Nymphomaniac Volume 1 and 2 starring Shia LaBeouf. I need to
Oh,
get on that here. I don't know. He's a weird dude too, where I feel like he is like kind of a joke, but could also be like one of the greatest actors of our generation if he like wanted to. I don't know. He's weird, man.
yeah, he does have that. Yeah,
X
that that
Factor. He's got the
that.
X Factor.
I didn't want to say it, but that's the thought that came through my head.
He's got the
Yeah.
Z Factor. Um, Another thing that I mean, obviously for how this was made, this makes sense because I think we talked about in the X review, they essentially because they filmed this in like Australia or something, I want to say when we did that one.
Yeah, that sounds right. Yeah,
And it was, didn't we say like they had extra time? So they actually made this Pearl movie because they had extra time essentially.
I believe that's how. Yeah, how it worked out. Like,
Um,
yeah.
And I know there's a ton of movies that have sequels, but like seeing that same house and that
Mm.
same barn and like the locales be the same as they were in that movie, like just reused in a different way, that tripped with my head a little bit too, man, because
It was a nice touch.
I was
Yeah,
like, this guy's that wall right there, that's the pitchfork's going to go through that in about 70 years and somebody's going to die right there. And
yeah. And then the final
um,
scene in X where they're like in the entryway of the house. Like we
yeah.
see that a few different times.
And like the pond, apparently the gator's still alive. Which I
Assuming
didn't.
it's not the same gator,
It
but
could be a baby gator, I guess, but
yeah.
all that stuff, just like seeing it again was creepy, I thought, man. It
Mm, agreed.
was like a remix of a horror movie with a different horror movie, so which may not be a horror movie, but yeah, definitely some like weird usage of time in this. I liked the time usage of like the slow burn, like we said, up to when she finally like cracked and snapped. I thought that was really well paced. And then the killing, and then there was the dance audition, which I kind of thought like when she did the dance audition and then she basically lost. I was like, oh, this got to be really close to the end of the film. And then I like looked and I was like, whoa, there's like 25 minutes left or something at this point after what I kind of assumed was going to be like the main thing because she'd killed
Hmm.
off her family and that was her dream.
All right.
But I guess, like you said, there's like a 8 minute talking scene after that and some other stuff in there too. But so I don't know. Some of the pacing was weird, and then you had like the speech was so long, and then the smiling was so long, and like it's just weird how they chose to use time at different parts in this film.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Um, I think I've hit all of my points. Is there anything else that you think other things you want to bring
Well,
up?
no, I don't think there's anything else I want to bring up, but I do want to ask you, like, we watched X kind of more or less on a whim and was interesting enough that we went back to watch this one to see who Pearl was. Like, are you interested enough to now like actively try to watch Maxine, the third one in the 80s? Are we
I
wrapping up this trilogy at some point?
I think I will.
Yeah.
I without going fully into my final thoughts on this, I liked it enough that I now that I've seen the first two, I feel like I am interested in seeing where this goes out. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree. I'm kind of curious to go back to that other character now and see what happens there. The films are kind of made in such a way that it's interesting too, because like this is going to sound terrible. Mia Goth doesn't have any nudity in these movies, even though these movies feature nudity, which when I watched X, I kind of just assumed the way, I mean, they were shooting a porno for crying out loud. So you just kind of
You
assume that the main
assume, yeah.
character is going to eventually, and she doesn't. And then in this one, like they painstakingly go out of their way to like cut away while she gets in the bathtub or cut away when she's
Mm,
doing this. And like they
true.
protect her there as well, but also include, like you said, the stag film and stuff. So it's interesting just how they are choosing, I guess, her time on screen, I guess. Let's put it that way.
Mm.
But yeah, I don't have anything else with this one. Just I'm gonna rewatch this with Dark Side of the Moon playing and see if it matches up like The Wizard of Oz.
That would be fun.
Actually, I wonder how that would work. There's a
Um,
reason that speech was 8 minutes long exactly.
it matches up with one of the songs second
That's
to
awesome.
second. Yeah. Um, okay, well, let's I guess let's wrap up this with some final thoughts then. I guess I'll go ahead and jump in first here. Um, yeah, I left after watching X. I liked that one. I didn't like love it. I felt like there were some issues with it, but I did like the horror aspects of it. I did feel like it was a pretty good slasher film overall.
Mhm.
Um, and so I was interested to go into this movie and see like this origin story and what they could do with it. Um, this was definitely a different this movie had a different vibe to it. It definitely wasn't like a slasher film like the other one was. It didn't have like long, like tension filled sequences where a character is like in danger or being like hunted or anything like that. They say all the deaths were like very quick. This was much more of a movie about like investigating the psyche of this character. Um, and the deaths were really there just to show how far gone she was. Um, Overall, I would say I liked my time with it. But I probably have many more like criticisms than I do like praise for it. I think a lot of my praise comes from like the like you were talking about the progression of the character. I felt like that was done pretty well. I brought up the point of like the start of the movie is like very like bright and cheerful kind of, and
Mhm.
the going from that to where we end up, um, I think was a positive like a good way to set that up. Um, and yeah, like the long monologue scene. I feel like that, like without that, I think I would have a very different feeling on this movie overall. Um, and then like that that crazy credits sequence was really kind of solidified like the feeling of the movie. Uh, but yeah, all that wrapped up, I enjoyed it. I don't think it's great. I feel like it has a lot of like really strong positive reviews that I don't know that I agree with. Like I saw people who's like this is one of the greatest horror movies of like the last decade, and I was like, okay. I mean, you're you are welcome to have that opinion. I don't feel that way.
Yeah.
Um, but did I enjoy it? Yeah, and I enjoyed it enough that I'm probably gonna watch the third film. Um, it literally just came out about a week ago, so it's uh I think it is available actually to buy digitally already, but
Oh
I'll
wow. Okay.
probably like wait for it to like come down in price at least some.
Yeah.
So
Did you get a score on that?
oh, I did not.
Oh.
Good call. Um, I I think I would probably give this um overall probably like a 6.0. I enjoyed it, but it wasn't like I say it wasn't great. Like I don't think it was a great horror movie.
Yeah.
It was an interesting character study.
I'd probably echo a lot of what you said. I'm thinking, part of my final thoughts here, I guess I'm going to go back to the man himself, Martin Scorsese here, and I wonder if what he really appreciates about this film is the filmmaking aspects of it, because I do feel like there was a lot of good decisions made with use of sound, color, like the way they frame things. Progression of character we definitely talked about is really good. He's kind of funny because he is always on record as like hating the Marvel movies because they're not quality movies, but it's like, but somehow the product is enjoyable to me, even if you could probably argue with a lot of the filmmaking decisions. And I'm wondering if here
Mm.
he's kind of like just doing the opposite of like, I really appreciated this guy putting this film together. But I really question if that actually means like his true score or opinions on this film would reflect that. Like, I think he just appreciates the art of it, but maybe it's not as good as the pieces of it are individually, which is what might be what he's praising, I guess here. I did think this was a really I mean, I do agree with him though, actually, where I think this is a very uncomfortable movie to watch in many ways. And I mentioned before, but I think it's like we don't see a lot of movies where, Jason became Jason. Well, how did that happen? There was 10 steps, okay, but here we see like the goose that's dead and the alligator egg is crushed and she almost pushes dad off and she gets into a fight with
Mm.
mom and she's kind of see her spiraling through her life as far as like how constricting it is, just trying to find like any way to get out of that, but maybe overdid it a little bit. One thing we didn't talk about is like, is this mom's fault? Is this like environmental? Is this just inside her that she turns out the way she did? Is it her husband going off to the war to fight and not knowing if he's alive or dead? Or they mentioned at one point she had like a baby that she lost. I mean, there's
Yeah,
a
that just kind of came out just quickly.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like just a line in there. So I think there's a lot of reasons why she could have ended up the way she did, but I enjoyed seeing the progression of how that character came to be and knowing where that character is so far into the future with X as a movie. Like I think that does make me appreciate that character a little bit more because there she's just like homicidal granny, but now I see that there was a like a root to all of that back in
Mm.
this one. So I had this at a 6, but in our discussion here and talking about a lot of things that I did enjoy, just a lot of choice elements. So I'm going to give this a 6.7 and bump it up to 6.8 with a point 0.1 bonus for dry humping a scarecrow to the point of orgasm. So 6.8.
Fair enough. Um, okay. Well, I mean, those are not great scores, but fair. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I would say this is probably a movie that could be worth checking out. It is free on Amazon Prime right now if you are interested in watching it. So it is no harm, no foul kind of at the moment if you have Prime. Um, and as I said, Maxine, which is the third movie in the series, that's Maxine with three X's, of
XXX.
course.
Is Vin Diesel in it?
I hope not.
Does
Um,
he play a scarecrow?
oh God. That that movie released on July 5th, so literally like 9 days ago at the time of recording here. Um, so that is a very fresh movie. I don't know if I've seen any reviews or anything on that yet. But yeah, I'm sure we'll check that out at some point here. So, uh, yes, we're gonna head here. Again, I've been Brett, and we've had Cody here tonight. This
Hey.
is the Fawn Pod, and just leave you with one question here. Let's just say an obvious fictional scenario that you say had I don't know, chopped up some victims and like needed to dispose of them, right?
Oh.
Uh, what animal would you keep around to dispose of your body parts?
Hmm. That's a good question. Definitely not something that can eat a lot because you don't want them to like be full and then have chunks of body laying everywhere because that's not going to work.
That would be a problem.
Also a problem because a lot of large animals are herbivores, like an elephant or something. So, and if I had like a great white shark, I would need a huge tank. That's a lot of upkeep. Oh man, this is tough. How about now are grizzly bears herbivores? Are they omnivores? What do they eat? I don't even know if they eat.
I believe they are
Besides
omnivores.
cocaine. Okay, cocaine and anything else that comes under the sun. I mean, alligators is a good choice, but if I can't take that, I will take a some sort of giant like anaconda or something that would have a
Mm.
very obvious human-shaped lump as it went down them. I just think that'd be fun to watch. So
All
you
right.
can see how long it takes to digest. You can time your murders appropriately.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. That's a good answer. All right. With that, we're done here. And we will see you guys next time.
All right, bye everybody. Hey, fondlings and fondlers. This has been another episode of Friends Occasionally Not Disagreeing, your favorite podcast. It's most people's favorite podcasts, or at least so my mom tells me. You can check us out all over the place online at our homepage, www.fondpod.com or fondpodcast.com. You can also check us out across your social media sites, including Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, X, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your streamed podcast. Thanks so much.